Hello and welcome back to the Alt. Thank you for joining me again today. I am your host, Shapirian. Pumped to be back with you ahead of the start of Week 10 of this NFL season. Season's starting to get away from us, guys. Make sure you're enjoying it. Make sure you're appreciating it. I'm excited to start talking with you. We're going to start by talking about this Thursday night matchup tonight. Before we do me a favor, check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please consider doing so. I just need you to click that little button. That's all I need. We're closing in on 100 subs, and I would really like to hit that goal soon. If you would be able to help me do so, it means more to me than you would know. All right, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this Thursday night matchup where the Cincinnati Bengals are heading into Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens for already the second time this season, when their first matchup was just a few weeks ago, it seems like. And it was, for my money, the best game of the season, where the Baltimore Ravens ended up pulling it off in a wild and wacky overtime with a fumble, a missed kick, a huge Derrick Henry run that ended up seeing them win that game 41-38. Newsflash, if you are new to the channel, yes, I am indeed a Cincinnati Bengals fan. If you're a Ravens fan who clicked on this video, don't worry. I'm not biased towards the Bengals in my coverage at all, not one bit, I promise you. I absolutely work my hardest to give you fair and accurate coverage. I have the Baltimore Ravens winning the Super Bowl this year, if that does you any favors, right? So don't click off the video, I promise you're going to get some good Ravens talk in this video. With that said, I'm actually going to be starting this matchup preview by talking about the Ravens and what I'm thinking about them as they go into it. First and foremost, my number one concern is obviously that Lamar Jackson didn't practice twice, showed up on the injury report, although he's not listed on it on the final game report. And for what it's worth, I never had any doubt that he was going to play in this game. I don't think anybody ever had any doubt that he was going to play in this game. But I have to wonder, wasn't it listed as a knee injury? Is this going to turn into a thing moving forward? Many buy after this is huge, obviously. But, you know, Lamar with a nagging knee injury is obviously much less of a threat to the rest of the AFC than 100% healthy Lamar Jackson, who very well may be on pace to win his third MVP award in just a handful of seasons. It'll be back-to-back, of course, if he does. So I do wonder about that. But, conversely, take it from me, if there's a team to be playing when you're a quarterback with a knee injury, it's probably the Cincinnati Bengals, who outside of a guy named Trey Hendrickson, who you can just double up and make sure he's rendered ineffective if you do so, can't get to the quarterback. It's their whole thing this season. In particular, did you watch that first matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens? They could not get to Lamar Jackson. They struggled to get him down all game. Trey Hendrickson, who currently is the league leader in sacks, had him wrapped and then straight up fell down. I believe it was to try to avoid a potential roughing the passer call, putting his whole body weight into him. And then lo and behold, later in the game, he sacks him. He does put his whole body weight into him. They call the flag, and he's like, come on, guys. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid here earlier. And then obviously Sam Hubbard, owned by Lamar Jackson on one of those plays that's going to be played when he gets enshrined into Canton, inevitably, by kind of getting just stiff armed to the ground after he fumbled the snap, backed up 25 yards, stiff armed Sam Hubbard, obviously threw a touchdown, finding Isaiah Likely in the end zone. So don't worry, Ravens fans. I'm not super concerned. I do wonder if it's going to be a thing moving forward. I think that's a reasonable thing to have, a reasonable fear to have for Lamar Jackson. But for this particular game, no. Okay? On top of that, Lamar Jackson poses such a matchup issue for the Cincinnati Bengals without the fact that you have Derrick Henry on this roster, the current league leader in rushing yards and everything that you could want to have. He's basically like a rushing Triple Crown winner right now, right? Maybe not attempts, if that's part of that. I'm not sure what that would entail. But he's been the guy. The reason Lamar Jackson has had so much success over the Bengals, right? Even when Joe Burrow plays, Burrow's only beaten them, I think he's 1-3 in his last 4, right? Or 1-3 in his 4 in Baltimore, right? Obviously, they swept him in 21, split in 22, but Lamar didn't play one of those times, swept in 23. The Bengals struggle against the Ravens, especially when Lamar is playing. The reason for it is because of Lamar's scrambling ability. Now, I have been very hyped and high on Lamar Jackson, the passer, this year, okay? I've said this is the element to his game that is making him truly probably the most elite player in the NFL right now, being that he is beating teams without moving out of the pocket much at all, other than to extend a play to find the pass, not to run first, right? Bengals can't stop that. They've never been able to stop that. The best chance they had to stop that would have been when they had a front seven of Hendrickson, Ogunjobi, Reeder, Hubbard when he was a little younger, a little faster, Pratt, Wilson, things of that nature. And that's just not the team you're facing now. And if there's guys left over from that team, they're older and slower, with the exception of Trey Hendrickson. And so you throw Derrick Henry into the mix. This is an offensive, a defensive nightmare for Cincy, an offensive daydream for Baltimore. So I expect them to absolutely get their own in this particular matchup, as I think a lot of people do. Let's focus on Cincinnati for just a moment here before we talk more about the Ravens' defense, although it is integral to the way we talk about Cincinnati, of course, because Cincinnati's hopes for this game rely solely on their offense. Well, with that said, T. Higgins. I'm on the record as saying he's my favorite player in the NFL. I love T. Higgins. I'm going to love him when he's on a team that isn't the Bengals after this season, even though it's going to break my heart, okay? He's not going to play in this game more than likely. He's listed as doubtful. He hasn't practiced all week. I think he was, getting some very, very light work in on Wednesday. Doesn't really move me. He's listed as doubtful. Of course, he's not going to play. That is a massive, massive blow to this Bengals offense. Listen, this is now going to be the third straight game that he's missed. Whenever he was fully healthy going into Friday practice 2 weeks ago to play the Eagles, and on Friday, which is essentially like a light practice, right? For most teams around the league are very light on Friday, even more light on Saturday. He hurts his freaking calf. And it's like, all right, I'm in a contract year. And this is not to speak for him, just kind of my thought on it. He's on a contract year. He's hurt. He's not 100%. He's not playing when he's not 100%. When he's not going, things get so much harder for the Cincinnati Bengals. You look at last week. They put up 41 points of their own against the Las Vegas Raiders, with just Jamar Chase being their only real offensive weapon there. And all it took was 5 touchdowns to guys not named Jamar Chase. Mike Gesicki having 2 touchdowns when he entered the game with 0 on the season. He found his halfback Chase Brown for 1. Burrow found Yossi Bosch for 1. Jamar Chase was a non-factor in that Vegas game, all right? I think he did in the game with 7 or 8 catches. But trust me, if you watch that game, he was a non-factor. Granted, he dropped the touchdown. He dropped another wide-open pass. Very strange, all things considered, when you're talking about the guy who leads the league in receiving touchdowns right now. But that's just the reality of it. When they don't have T. Higgins, the offense looks so much worse. I don't think the average fan realizes that, although there is obviously that narrative of Burrow being carried by his weapons that people like to purvey. I don't think the Bengals front office realizes that when they've had the chance to lock up T. Higgins since the end of the 2021 season and chose not to do so. Now being like, well, we can't pay him. We waited 3 extra years to try to do so. Yes, he's more expensive now. And yes, you have seen some injury issues pop up since then. Oh well, it is what it is. No T. Higgins for this game in particular, in my mind, greatly reduces any chance that the Bengals had of beating the Baltimore Ravens. It is possible. It's not likely. All right? They might be getting some help back in the form of their starting left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr., the former Raven, the former Chief, who has been very good this season, having debatably the best year of his career on that offensive line protecting Joe Burrow, but I don't know. I don't think he moves the needle enough for me. And then, of course, though, if we're talking about things that give the Bengals a chance, well, you have to talk about the way Joe Burrow shredded that Ravens defense when they met in Cincinnati less than a full month ago at this point. Which brings me to my next talking point, the Ravens defense. Listen, I think the Ravens defense is going to continue to get better as the season goes on. Yes, they are significantly worse than they were last year, where they were by far the best defense in the league. Statistically speaking, if you look at most analytical measures, one of the greatest defenses of all time. It sounds like a stretch. It's not. That Ravens defense in 23 is one of the best defenses we'll ever see as long as we live. So with that said, obviously they've lost a lot of key pieces since then. I still think they're going to be fine come playoff time. I think they're going to keep them in games. I think the offense is nuclear enough for it to not matter. But you can't let Burrow get hot early. Okay? If he starts matching you blow for blow, or, God forbid for the Ravens, Bengals get the ball first, score 7-0. They force a 3 and out and say, whoa, what the heck? 14-0. Whoa, okay. They did come back down 10 in the fourth quarter last time. But I think Burrow is continuing to evolve as the season goes on. This is debatably his best year he's ever had. Defense has to do their job early in this one. And if they do, I think it could end up being a blowout for Baltimore. So I don't really want to focus much on the Bengals defense, in part because they make me sick to my stomach. It just is what it is. I cannot stand this 2024 Bengals defense. I thought I hated the 23 Bengals defense. God, I hate the 24 Bengals defense, okay? That is going to see a little bit of bias come through there. So I guess I'm a liar for this particular episode. God, I can't stand this Bengals defense, all right? Outside of Trey Hendrickson, I find them mostly irredeemable at most positions. I really do. They've got a couple of young rookies, not doing it for me. A couple of young members of the secondary, they don't do it for me. There's really no one redeemable on this defense except Trey Hendrickson. Even Cam Taylor-Britt, who I was a huge fan of, has shown to be very inconsistent and is ending up in the wrong places on a lot of crucial plays that allows this defense to never be able to get off the field on third down. So let's focus instead on the must-win status of this game for Cincinnati. Sitting at 4-5 through 9 weeks, the bye is for a couple more weeks, and the Ravens and the Steelers both sit very comfortably ahead of you with 2 and 3 losses on the season. Now, I get it. As it stands right now, you're an Evan McPherson missed kick on a bad snap and bad hold, granted, to play devil's advocate there, from actually being ahead of the Ravens in the division right now, which is strange if you think about the way the Ravens season has gone. If McPherson makes that kick, they're tied at 5-5 in terms of record, and the Bengals are ahead due to the tiebreaker. So they know they're close. And this one definitely feels like a must-win because you don't want to fall to 4-6. I'm going to be unpopular for this opinion. I can't imagine a lot of people listening are going to like this opinion. It's not must-win for the Bengals. It's not. Whoa, what? They could be 4-6 and still make the play. Yeah, they could, just because of the way the rest of the schedule works out. Albeit, it's not easy, okay? I'm not going to show it again. I showed a scenario when they had only 2 wins on the season after they lost to the Ravens to fall to 2-4, okay? Before they ended up losing to the Eagles. I said, all right, you're actually 1-4. You're 1-4 on the season is what I said. You're 1-4. Can you get to 10-7? Yes, you could. In that scenario where I said they go 10-7, I had them losing to the Ravens again. Since then, the only game that they've lost that I said maybe they won't is the Eagles. But the Eagles were in a group of games that I said you just have to go 500 in. So with that said, if they lose to the Ravens, they fall to 4-6. They now can only afford to lose one more game really for the rest of the season in order to have a guaranteed playoff spot on a schedule that has the Steelers twice, the Broncos, the Chargers. That's tough. But that being said, you look at their most winnable games. The Cowboys, with that defense, potentially without Dak. He's not guaranteed to be back by then. That would be Game 5. The rumor has it that injury is a little worse than we thought. The Titans should be a must-win, although they beat them last year with Burrow on the field. The Browns, again, iffy. You never know. This one's in Cincy. Their other matchup was in Cleveland, and Cincy pulled it out. You should win those. The Broncos, I think the Ravens just exposed the Broncos. I really do, okay? If you can manage to take one from the Steelers and beat the Chargers, 10-7 is still very attainable even with the loss of the Ravens. You beat the Ravens, though, and you're playing with house money on the season where it's like, all right, guys, we reasonably can afford, we have 7 games left. We can go 5-2 and still make the playoffs, as opposed to having to go 6-1 to get the job done. Just saying. But with that said, that's pretty much all the pregame coverage I want to give for this one. Before I give you my winner prediction and score prediction, for the Bengals going into Baltimore for what could be the Thursday night matchup of the year. It really could. Usually when these two teams plays, it comes down to the last possession. Every time since 22 that the Bengals and the Ravens have played with Burrow and Lamar, granted, because there's been matchups without the other, right? Comes down to the last possession. Every time. Every time. The Ravens are usually winning in that case, but it's usually a good game. So with that said, do I see the Ravens in their awesome purple rising uniforms that people love? Albeit not my cup of tea. I like your regular uniforms a lot better. Dropping this one to Cincy? No, I don't. My winner in this one is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. I think they win this game by a score of 34-20. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Sorry, Cincy. Yeah. The town I live in, the town I support, the town I love. You're not winning this game. It's no way. If I had to assign odds to it, this is not a mathematical like Vegas odds makers thing, right? I've thrown out some pretty ludicrous odds, like 98% chances to win games, and teams have lost in that case. I'd say it's probably like 80-20 that the Ravens win this game. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I'm pulling for the opposite, full transparency. I think the Ravens do it, and I think they win 34-20. 2-score win on Thursday Night Football to continue their path to probably, in my opinion, hoisting Lombardi come February. And since he's path to even making the big dance, period, gets a lot harder. Alright, this was a bit of a different episode of the Alt. Usually when I say that wraps up this episode, people click off, so I wanted to get this out of the way before doing that. This was deliberately a different episode. I've noticed there's days of the weeks where people, viewer-wise and engagement-wise, are enjoying the full multi-tiered episodes more. And there's days of the week where they're not enjoying that as much. And I'm seeming to only get engagement on the biggest subject of that day. So, you'll have to bear with me. Over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be playing with the formatting of the show in terms of what days have multiple segments and some days only having one segment. Like this episode, where I think people probably just want to hear about Ravens-Bengals more than anything on this particular day. Ahead of Friday, where I give you my full Week 10 breakdown of my picks and things of that nature. But with that said, that does wrap up this episode of The Alt. If you made it this far in the episode, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I don't take you for granted. Please, like I said, consider hitting subscribe. It really, really, really helps me a ton. I would love to hit 100 subs soon. Please. It'd be great. But that is it for this one. Enjoy that Thursday Night Football game tonight. It should rock. Hope that everybody gets out of it healthy. And that is a fun, hopefully high-scoring affair for both teams. With that said, that is all for today. And I will see you back here bright and early tomorrow.